All right, guys, this is Greg Sands. I'm the CEO of the Mudlick Mail Company, and I am here today with Mike Daniels. This is going to be a really exciting webinar. I had to bring in a heavyweight to help me with this. As usual, anytime we talk about something to do with sales or objections or anything like that, we get maxed out on these webinars, and so I want to go ahead and get started in this because we've got a lot of things to cover. Our hope with this is to make you money, and so rather than have guys who haven't sold in years, I wanted to bring in a heavyweight, which is Mike Daniels. Mike was my #1 general manager back in Texas in the 90s, and he was the first owner-operator that I had. Mike went to Austin as an owner-operator, bought me out in Austin. Then from there went to Dallas and started buying up stores in Dallas. And then, and today, Mike Daniels has 12 locations in 2 cities. He is a guy who's done $200,000 in sales out of a location in Spring, Texas for me back in 1997. He did $211,000 in the Woodlands, Texas in 1999. He now does about probably $14–15 million in sales. This guy knows how to sell. He knows how to overcome objections. He's the real deal, and you want to really pay attention to him today. So welcome, Mike. Welcome to the Mudlick Mail webinar.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody.
Well, why don't we get right into this because we've got a lot to cover today. Why don't we start with, the problems right early on. When you have an objection or somebody talks to you about an objection, give me an example, like a poor presentation.
Well, the first thing that we notice is when we go in and we start doing some training and we start listening to guys and their presentation skills. And what I mean by presentation is when you pick up the phone or you go into the waiting room and your first interaction with the customer. The #1 problem that I see that a lot of guys are having is that they put no prep time in before they go in and talk to that customer. And what I mean by prep time, a lot of times you'll have a technician diagnose a car. He'll walk up into the front office, throw the work order up in the office. A manager at that time will price the job out without putting any thought into it, picks up the phone, calls the manager, attempts to make the sale, and then wonders why he doesn't make the sale. And so what we've got to do, a lot of the objections can be overcome by putting the proper amount of prep time in before you initially make that phone call, or if you do have a customer in the waiting room, before you go into that waiting room and talk to the customer. One of the things that we do is it's pretty much mandatory in our company that all managers have to physically see the repair with the technician with their own eyes. And what I mean by that is that, you go, when a technician writes up, let's say, a brake job, we force our managers to go out there into that shop, look at that car with the technician, so they have personally put their eyes on the brake rotor that's got a 1/4-inch groove in it. That way they have conviction in the fact that that rotor needs to be replaced. So here again, that's just one tool that we use. So, one of our scripts that when we go in and make a sale, we talk to the customer, Mr. Jones, is now a good time to talk about your vehicle. Great. My certified technician, Jim, and I have personally inspected your brake concern. So what that does is it personalizes the repair, as well as now that manager is going to sell with conviction. So putting the proper amount of prep time before the sale is very important.
One thing we talked about last night, Mike came to one of my general managers meetings last night and talked to the guys, and one of the things he touched on was, as a great salesman or service writer, you need to be able to answer all the customer's questions in your mind. Can you give an example of that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is that, the good thing about automotive repair is that most of all of our customers have the same buying habits. So what happens, and if you sell automotive repair long enough, you realize that, part of this prep time is that you want to get into the mindset of the customer. And what I mean by that is that before we pick up the phone, I'm going to think, okay, what could this customer ask me? And what I mean by that is like if you're selling let's say a tune-up, and you got spark plugs and wires and fuel filters, and you're trying to sell a full system tune-up, one of the questions that the customer could ask is, well, can I do away with not doing the spark plug wires? That's one example. So what we train with our guys is that when you sit down and do your prep time before you talk to the customer, you want to make sure that you answer all of those questions in your initial presentation. That way you can explain to the customer, why the spark plug or the ignition cables are needed. So you're going to answer all of those objections in your initial presentation. So at the end of when you tell them it's X amount of dollars and you assume the sale, basically the only answer you're looking for is yes or no. If you get in a situation where you present a repair and then you're waiting for the customer to tell you yes, fix the car, or don't, and then they start asking you a bunch of questions like, well, do I have to put the thermostat in it, or do I have to put the hoses on it, or can I go with a different water pump? Then if they start asking you a bunch of 20 questions, then obviously your presentation wasn't very good. So you need to make sure that when you present repairs to the customers, that you do that prep time and making sure that you're going to answer those customers' questions in that initial presentation.
Okay, switching to the next slide, I wanted to, one of the things that I talked about for years, even back when you were in our training classes as a young rookie, is rehearsing the sell and the pitch. And some guys think it's kind of sissified to pitch a set, to rehearse or script a sell and do a rehearsal before pitching it. And you were one of the best guys at it. How were you able to overcome that with guys in the shops, and explain the value of rehearsing a sell?
Well, we call it role playing, and whether it's phone skills or it's actually a true presentation, what we do is we go into the general manager or the owner of the shop. They will actually get with the technician, they will inspect the car, and let's say that particular manager is going to turn that ticket over to an assistant manager. Then they'll go ahead and price the ticket out, and then at that time, that general manager is going to rehearse. He's going to role play with that manager, and the manager is going to go in and attempt to sell whatever repairs out there. And then the general he's going to set up those objections. He's going to kind of challenge that manager a little bit, so he will be able to answer those objections when he goes into the call.
So his job, if he's rehearsing with somebody, is to give him some objections, and then they work together to make sure that they have the perfect comeback off of that. That makes sense. And that is one of the hardest things to teach. When I go in and talk to people, it seems like that's the thing that gets skipped. They'll say, because a lot of things you see in the shops are arrogance. Right. Some of the highest salespeople, they feel like, I've heard this before, well, if I can't sell it, then it can't be sold. And that's a guy that really doesn't know what he's talking about, does he?
That's absolutely correct.
Now, what if you're by yourself in a shop? How would you rehearse when you don't have another manager in the shop? Because that's another thing with shop owners, a lot of times are working by themselves.
Absolutely. Well, one of your best role play capabilities is your technician. If you've got a technician out in the shop and you've got this job priced out, and you can just say, hey man, what does this sound like? And boom, you just go straight into it. You start role playing that repair. That technician, believe it or not, because he's got that technical background, he's going to give you pointers on what to say and what not to say. And all of that information is going to help and assist you in closing that sale.
Yeah, and then let's say that you rehearse the job and the guy pitches the job to a customer. He overcomes the objection, but he just can't get the sale. What's his job at that point?
Well, the first thing he wants to do is leave the ticket open.
There you go. What does that mean?
leave the ticket open. What we do is with our managers, we train these guys that if the customer, if you're going to get a no and the customer's not going to, for whatever reason is going to tell the manager no, don't fix the car, then we train them to leave the ticket open. And leaving the ticket open means that we're going to leave it open so another manager can come back after the sale.
So they're expecting the customer, they're expecting somebody to call back. So an example of that would be what? How would you finish up with a customer?
Okay, the way we train to leave the ticket open is that once the manager gets an idea that the customer's not going to want to fix the car, we always ask the question why.
Okay.
Why can't I fix your car? Okay, or why, ma'am, I apologize, I understand, you've got a broke car, you need a repair here. Is there any reason why I can't fix it? And then that way she's going to give you an objection. I don't have time, it's too much money. Whatever the situation is, she's going to tell you the objection or he's going to tell you the objection. And then you just leave it up. And I understand your concern, ma'am. I tell you what, let me get with upper management and let me see what I can do. Okay, and
so if it's a price issue, you say, hey, let me get with my general manager and with the owner and see if I can, maybe they can get you a better price. I'll talk to the technician. Give me a few minutes.
Absolutely.
And I'll call you back. Then that's keeping the ticket open.
Absolutely.
So that then the customer, now we know how to script the sale, don't we? We go or rehearse, because now we've got a customer who is
price
sensitive, and they've already given us a no, and now that's where the general manager can be the hero.
Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely.
Very good. And so what happens when you turn the ticket over and your manager makes a second attempt? How would you approach that?
What we do is the manager, the general manager, or the manager that's actually going to call back, he's going to call the customer up, make sure that is now a good time to talk about the vehicle. And what he's going to do is he's just going to kind of pick right up where the earlier manager left off. He's going to say, Miss Jones, this is, my name's Mike. I'm the general manager here of the shop. I wanted to make sure that Jim, whoever the assistant was, or the previous manager that talked to the customer, I just wanted to make sure Jim fully explained the repairs and why we need to do the repairs today. That's the number, that's the trick. The importance of the repairs and why we need to do the repairs today. And then what happens is you go, I was out there personally with a technician. I fully walked through the technician on what we can and can't do, and if there's any options here. I understand your pricing concerns, or I understand your timing concerns, or whatever the objection is, and you just go back after it and try to close it.
And do you think when you call back the second time, is your job to sell the customer, or are you more educating the customer?
It's all education. All education. You never, a lot of times, let's say it is a price issue. Where the manager comes to you and says, yeah, he or she feels like it's too much money. Well, I never drop my price unless, that's like a last case scenario. What I'm going to do, a lot of times, just, A, the customer has thought about it a little bit, and B, it's a different voice reflection. You'd be amazed how many times managers have turned over the ticket to me, and basically I get on the phone and get halfway into my sales pitch, and they say, okay, Mike, just fix the call me when it's ready. Okay, so you have to make sure that you follow up with the customer, you go through the process, you do the education, you make sure you talk their language. I personally inspected the car with my ASE certified technician. This is why we need to do the repair today. It's definitely worth the investment. I know it's a lot of money, but really looking at the overall car, because salesmanship, guys, in selling automotive service as long as I have, the sale is not what's wrong with the car. The sale is made with what's right with the car. You've got to build that investment up. So I'm going to sit there and educate that customer on why she needs to drop $1,500 on this car, because it's worth the $1,500 is worth the investment of the car. So I'm going to positive and negative sell the repair. I'm going to say, man, the paint's in good shape. Looks like you got brand new tires on it. I'm going to look for everything positive on that car when I go back after that second sell to make sure that I close that sell.
That's good. Let's go into this first objection. And we've covered a lot of things. You know, and prior to this webinar, we covered speed of service, you know, and how important getting back to the customer is, and being a yes company. You know, we hear these same objections all the time. We get them in our stores, right?
Correct.
You know, so if a customer says, you know, wow, I don't have that kind of money, I need to wait. How do you respond to that?
Well, here again, it all goes back to that prep, you know, as far as prepping that customer. Too many times in the industry, what happens is that we don't full system isolate. And what I mean by full system isolate is that, you know, if a customer comes in, let's say for a coolant leak, and we diagnose that the water pump's leaking. Well, obviously, we're going to replace a thermostat and gasket. We're going to replace the cooling flush due to maintenance as well, maybe the hoses, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So everything in the cooling system that needs to be replaced because it's either A, broke, or B, it needs to replace for maintenance, we call that a full system isolate.
Okay.
And here's what happens. Too many times when guys in the industry, what they'll do is they won't full system isolate a repair. So all they'll do is they'll go in and they'll write up the water pump and the thermostat, okay? And they won't write the cooling flush up, or they won't write the hoses up.
Is that because they think that's the upsell?
They think that's the upsell.
Right.
That's exactly
but
right.
anything that's within that system is what you're calling a full system.
Yeah. Everything from that point is presented with one price to the consumer. You know, it needs A, B, C, and D, and your total investment is $795 plus tax. The good news is all the parts are available. You know, you go through your assumption of the sale and the whole deal. So what happens now, if we're looking to overcome a price objective, is that this is where a lot of guys in the industry go wrong. Because they only try to sell the water pump and the thermostat, so regardless if you're going to sell the water pump and the thermostat, or you sell the water pump, thermostat, the flush, and the hoses, all of it's going to be too high for the customer.
Right.
If that's their mindset. True or false?
That's true.
So now what happens is that we ask the customer, well, ma'am, is there a particular price you had in mind? You know, the repairs need to be done. So then what we can do is now we can back off the hoses. We say, okay, ma'am, well, I understand your situation. The need today is the water pump and the thermostat and maybe the flush. The hose replacement is an extra $200. That's part of the $700 repair. So we can get it down to $500, not doing the hoses, and then maybe we can reschedule the hoses here in a month or two when you have the money.
So what you didn't do is you had, let's say, 6 or 7 components to get that system fixed.
The full system.
And instead of lowering your price, you took away some of those components that were not, they're important, but they weren't an emergency.
Exactly.
So that got them back on the road.
And you've maintained your margins.
Excellent.
And
Good.
that's what happens is guys, they only try to sell the water pump and the thermostat, and then it's too high to the customer. So the only thing, and it needs both to fix the car, and now what they have to do, the only way they can lower the price is to lower their margins.
Right.
So if you full system isolate, you'll be amazed how you'll not only maintain your margins, but you also get customer retention, because now it's a kind of like a missed sell, and you'll reschedule that appointment. You know, in most point of sale systems now, you can forecast that appointment out a month, 2, 3 months. It'll flag you, force you to call that customer, and they come in and you get a $200 hose changeover.
Now, if a customer says, okay, that's great, but I still only got $50 in my pocket, you know, what are the things that we do to try to help them out?
Sir, I got some great news. We've got some internal financing, and we go into our Car Care One program.
Which is, I think, 6 months same as
right,
cash,
exactly.
Good.
Exactly.
And then other options, I think they can have co-signers on there, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
they can have co-signers. I know in Texas there was we were getting financing for people that would, if they had a clear title,
Correct.
that they could go get the money.
Correct.
We don't finance them,
Yeah.
but we usually seek outside sources, and you have to check your state to see what they have available. But the key is not to give up. One thing I found is that when people say they don't have the money, if it's a difference between getting them back on the road or not, and it's, $500 or less, they're going to come up with the money. Because what can you do without a car?
Absolutely.
I think that's very good. So what if they say your prices are just too high? Hey, you guys are outrageous. Man, I can get it done cheaper somewhere else.
Right. I always, when I do get that objective, and obviously I have in selling a service as long as I have, I'll always ask the customer, ma'am, I'm so sorry. Is there a particular price you had in mind? And you're going to find out 95+% of the time, the customer's not going to have an answer for that. Because you know what? They just don't. Because if you look at this from an industry standpoint, and don't anybody take this the wrong way, but at the end of the day, the majority of our repairs, the byproduct of what we do, they're all the same. I can look at my competitors around me, and we all use the same technicians because grass is greener on the other side of the road. So technicians have a revolving door. Not all of them, but 50% of them. So we're using the same technicians. We're all buying the same brake pads from the same supplier. I don't care who you are. We've got dealerships even now buying from First Call and everybody else. So we're all using the same parts. We're all using the same technician. That brake job that my competitor is going to do is no different than the brake job that I'm going to do. So because I know that, and because of the fact that I also price shop my competitors, at the end of the day, we're all probably within, maybe $15 on a front brake job.
Right.
Okay, so the price is the same, and we have the same byproduct, or we've got the same product. The only thing we can do different is customer service. So when I get that objection, knowing what that consumer is going to find if they go out there and price shop me, I'm going to hammer her on customer service. I'm going to give her all of the benefits because that's the only thing I can do different than my competitor. We're all charging about the same price. The byproduct, the brake jobs are no different. The only thing I can do different is customer service. And that's where we go into our 3-year, 36,000 mile nationwide warranty, same day service, pickup and delivery. We're going to take care of you. We've got, we're extended hours. We're here for you on Saturdays. Boom, boom, boom. You just start hammering the customer service. So you want to build that investment up.
Now, if let's say that they're, this is on original sell, and they still go, you know what? I don't care about the warranty. I don't care about. I just want you to match Firestone. And what do you do in that circumstance?
I basically tell them that absolutely, ma'am, let me see what I can do. So what I'll do, and I said, I will go in and I'll hang the phone up and I'll tell them I'll call them back. Give me 10 or 15 minutes and I'll follow back up with you. So here's what I do. Now, when I make that second phone call, because she's basically want to negotiate with me.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I make that second phone call, I still in my mind think I'm going to sell that for full retail.
Right.
The very first, because that's what I'm thinking about. Okay. So then what happens is I'm going to give her a call and tell her, I said, ma'am, I've got some great news. I was able to get you a better price. Now, unfortunately, because I'm going to have to go with an inferior brake pad, you see how you threw that word in there? Because I'm going to have to go with an inferior brake pad, and I can compete with Firestone or these other brake components, but I'm going to have to go with the same quality of thing. So I can't give you my 3-year, 36,000 mile nationwide warranty. I can only give you a 12/12. And oh yeah, by the way, that doesn't prevent it from squealing. Brake noise is not included in that warranty.
So you show them the apples to apples.
Absolutely.
And then you show them the difference in price, which really isn't that much at the end of the day.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, that's the deal. So they get the warranty, and you can get it done today, and you're open on Saturday.
Absolutely.
What if
And the other thing too, Greg, and of course this is in the Dallas and Austin, some of the bigger cities that we're in. Our customers putting 20,000 miles a year on a vehicle. So when you start talking about 12/12 warranty, you're only talking 6, 9, maybe a 1-year warranty on a set of brakes.
Right.
So you can always use that against them as well. Why? For an additional for an additional $40 or $30 or whatever it is, it's well worth the extra 18 months, 20 months worth of warranty.
Well, let me ask you a tough question. At what point is this not your customer? What point do you just say, you know what, I'm not going to make any money off this. This customer doesn't care about my services. When do you pull the plug?
When you pull the plug, I mean, when you go through and you've turned the ticket over, you've done everything you could to try to help this customer, and you've identified that this customer is just set on, whatever their objection is, then, you just because unfortunately out there, not everybody out there is our customer.
Absolutely.
It's just not going to happen. And you just, at the end of the day, now that doesn't mean, I still believe in my heart, and this is just a sales guy, if they leave me their keys, they're going to leave money in my cash drawer.
Right.
Okay, so that's still the way a salesman needs to think, but unfortunately in some isolated cases, you're just going to have to close the door on the customer and be nice and apologize, and even when they show up to pick the car up, you're still trying to sell them at the counter because right now you don't have anything to lose.
Yeah, well, we've noticed in our stores is that customers, that situation has happened because we shot them straight, we gave them our best price, they do pick up the car and they leave. I'm surprised at how many shows back up.
Absolutely.
If not on that particular repair in 2 or 3 months, and with the nightmare story.
Right.
Wow, I was quoted $79, I got there, and then I found out those weren't really the brake pads that
Right.
I needed, or the thing squeaks, or now they won't honor the warranty, all of those things. So that's what we found is a point where you just can't still hit your margins.
Right.
There's no point in doing a repair and warrantying it for 3 years
No.
if you're just going to lose.
Yeah, it doesn't
Your
work that
margin.
way. And,
Yeah.
and the customer will find out the hard way.
They do,
will.
and then and there are just circumstances where people just don't. They don't. The ones that customers have the hardest time are the ones that don't understand the value of
Absolutely.
the benefits.
Absolutely.
What's crucial though is for managers not to go, oh, this doesn't work. People don't care about benefits because 1 out of 600 customers is like that.
Right.
And that's
Right.
what I tend to deal with is the extreme cases where people go, I don't care about your warranty, I don't care about your quality, I just want the cheapest damn brake job I can get.
Right.
And that is what, you got to walk away and go, no, that's okay. We're not going to have everybody want
Right.
this job.
Well, in salesmanship, you've got to build value, and that's what, when we talk about the prep work and about role playing and about looking at the car with your technician, what you're doing when you call that customer up or you go into that waiting room and you talk to that customer, you've got to understand that you educate. We call it educate, 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 close. The education process will make the sale for you. A lot of times, you may think that that's not your customer, but it's because your presentation was so poorly.
Right.
You think it's a price issue or the guy ain't got no money. That's not the case. The fact is you're just a weak salesman. Your presentation skills weren't good enough, so at the end of the day,
Don't you find too, I agree with you, because when we have one that's turned down, a lot of times we can go back and find out where we blew it. It may have been right at the start the way we greeted the customer.
Absolutely.
It could have been that we took too long to check out the car. Or this is a big one. We didn't call the customer back with a price when we said we would.
Absolutely.
Now we've lost credibility. Now it's later in the day, and now we're trying to sell, and the customer's saying, you know
Absolutely.
what, I'm not interested. And it's hard to sell benefits when every step of the way you haven't shown any benefit.
Absolutely.
You're just like everybody else.
Absolutely.
That's great. Well, let's move on to subjection. We hear this a lot, which is, this can go either way nowadays with husbands or wives. I want to talk to my husband. Can I call you back? How do you handle that?
Absolutely. What we do, and this is just selling service for as long as we have, we try to identify who is actually the one in the household that's paying the bills. Sometimes it's the husband, and sometimes it's the wife. You just really don't know who's making those financial decisions. They both may make the financial decisions, but odds are there's one of the two that's making the final decision. So What we've learned in that case, what we don't want to have happen is we don't want that customer to play, we don't want them to play good cop, bad cop against us. So what happens is that when we say, absolutely, ma'am, if she says I got to get with my husband, I go straight in, or he may say I got to get with my wife. I go straight into, well, ma'am, I tell you what, would you like for me to call him so I can fully explain the details to him? And here's what I say, because we may have some options. That's the trick.
Is to say options.
Is to say options, because if she starts or he starts going, well, what are those options? Then I know more than likely she's the one making some of those financial decisions, or he's the one making some of those financial decisions. Now, she just doesn't, if she just says, okay, I'll have him call you, or no, or whatever, then you know she or he's not the one making those financial decisions. So you always want to make sure that you try to identify who's the one making the financial decisions, because that's who you want to sell. What you don't want to have happen is you don't want to have, we've got a system, we've got an EGR valve, exhaust gas recirculation, recirculating unburnt gases. I mean, automotive repair can get somewhat a little detailed. So you don't want a wife to call the husband up and say, hey, I went in and got my car checked out, they want $1,200 to fix it.
Which is what happens.
It's exactly what happens.
So-
So there's no salesmanship there. She doesn't tell the husband that we have the warranty and we have this and extended hours, and you go through all of the sales techniques and the presentation skills. So you want to have that opportunity to talk to the guy making the financial decisions.
Now, let's say that they won't let you talk to the husband, but she's confident she can make the pitch for you, and now lo and behold, they don't want to do the repairs. How do we try to overcome that?
If the customer is, so we've actually, let me make sure I understand the question.
We ask permission to talk to the husband. She says, no, I'll explain it. Then she calls back and says, well, we've just decided we're going to wait on that.
Okay. What we do is when we're put in that situation, we're going to sit there and we're going to ask we're going to basically ask the customer why we can't fix the car.
Yeah.
Okay. And then once we get into the why, that's going to reopen the conversation. Whether it's timing, whether a lot of times 90% of the times, well, that's too much. We're thinking about getting rid of the car.
So they'll give you the objection
They'll
as
give
soon
us
as you
the
ask well,
absolute
why. Well, he thinks he needs to do X, Y, Z.
Absolutely. You always have to ask why. Why?
So the key, and it's just with anything
Because
sales,
if you
is
don't,
ask it.
exactly, because Greg, think about it. It's already a zero ticket.
Yeah.
So what are you going to lose? I mean, as a sales guy, I kind of take it personal that a customer's not going to allow me to fix their car. I mean, if you think about it, wait a second. You've got a broke car. You brought it to me to fix, but yet you're not going to allow me to fix it. I even go to say, ma'am, I'm so sorry. Why can't I fix your car? What did we do wrong?
Right.
What did we do wrong?
We're in the business of fixed cars.
Absolutely.
You brought your car to me.
Absolutely.
You don't want to do it.
What?
We did something wrong.
What do you got to lose?
You
It's
don't.
a zero ticket.
And you know what? 10 out of 10 times we did something wrong.
Absolutely, every time. It's funny that you mentioned that. Obviously seeing over 7, 8, 9,000 cars a month in my company, we do, unfortunately, sometimes have customer complaints that come in. So as handling the majority of those complaints, really I've learned to where and it's, we overcharged or we dropped the ball on the service. Every time there's an issue with a customer, I'm asking the questions because I want to find out where we dropped the ball in our concept, in our system. And 9 out of 10 times, you're going to hear stuff like, well, they told me they'd call me at 10, I didn't hear something till 3. Now, that's not what they call, that's not their initial complaint. Their complaint is the fact that I overcharged them on a brake job.
Right.
But because of that little bitty tweak, we were supposed to call them at 10 and it took till 3, then guess what? We're an overpriced automotive repair center because we dropped the ball.
Absolutely.
It's real simple. If your customer service is greater than your price can be anything it wants to be.
Yeah.
The problem that we have is that we get to the point where our price is greater than our customer service, and then we're just an overpriced automotive repair center.
That's perfect. Good. So look at on objection 4, and we're moving right along. I hope. Let's say a customer says, "Can I call you back?" You know, you pitched a job to them. They say, "Well, can I call you back on that?"
Absolutely. You want to go into, absolutely, sir, is there any other questions I can answer for you? Do you fully understand why we need to do the repair today?
So you just want to make sure that they're fully educated, so that when they hang up the phone,
And I'm going to reclose, just what I said. It comes with keep in mind, it does come with our 3 or 36,000 mile nationwide warranty. All the parts are available today, and I can definitely have it for you before the close of in the business.
why do you think people use this? Why do they use that not even objection? It's just, "I'll call you back."
They're just unsure. They don't really know what to expect. In automotive repair, one of the biggest one of the biggest complaints that customers have in our industry is that there's lack of communication. And that's why we always say speed sells. People are impulse buyers. They didn't wake up, drive their car to you at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning and leave it with you, not to get that car fixed.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes they're a little bit in sticker shock. A lot of times, because of our sales techniques, we put customers in a situation, but really at the end of the day, we're just wanting a yes or no answer. So they've got to digest it a little bit, and they're going to have to. They need to digest it, and 9 out of 10 times, when they call back, if they have an answer or two, we'll go in. But we always are trying to close that sale.
Yeah. So usually when they call back, it's okay. Go ahead and do it.
Absolutely.
Or if there's a few things, they may say,
a lot of times they have to find the money. A lot of times we do a really good job in our presentation prep work, but you know what? They don't have $1,200. So they may have to call around, call mom, call granddad, call somebody to figure out, see if they can gather the money, and then call us up and say fix the car.
Okay. So let's use this objection. I think I'm going to wait and get that done later. I don't want to do it right now. I'm just going to wait on it.
Here again, if you full system isolated the repair, you always go into it to where, yes ma'am, I understand your concern, but today we need to do a minimum of this. And that's where we go with it. These repairs need your immediate attention. I do understand the cost, and that's where I go in and maybe go in and not sell the hoses or tell them I'm going to take the hoses off, but we've got to at least do the water pump. You've got to at least get the cooling leak.
Do the stuff that keeps you off the side of the road.
Absolutely.
Without scaring somebody.
Absolutely.
So if it's a safety issue, then you might handle that different than if it's a maintenance issue.
Absolutely.
Like if it was a more of just maintenance work, how would you handle that? Because that's not an emergency.
We would prioritize it.
Okay.
We would prioritize the repair. If there was 2 or 3 maintenance repairs, I would always still go back in and try to close at least one of the issues, and then set the other ones up for interval. I would prioritize the repair. The other thing too is it's not only from safety. I want to make sure that we not only, when we do have to go in and prioritize, we not only want to take care of the safety issues, we want to take care of the things that are going to cost the customer money down the road.
Right.
And that's really where we get into the cause, the effect, the maintenance, and our training on that.
Okay. Very good. So, what if the question is, I'm going to sell this car?
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever heard that one before, right? I'm
Right.
selling. You notice they don't sell.
Yeah,
3 months later,
exactly.
they're still selling their car.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Exactly.
so their answer is, I'm just going to sell the car.
Right. That's where we always go into, where you have to, here again, doing the prep work. You've got, because we know that that's where a lot of customers go. So in my initial presentation, this is a question that I'm going to try to answer.
Before it ever comes up.
Before it ever comes up. and I'm going to basically use words like it's worth the investment. The car looks to be in great shape. You know, I mean, anytime we're looking to put $2,800 in a car, I make my technicians go through it from bumper to bumper because we want to make sure that the car is worth the investment. And we've looked at your cars and we see that you've done a great job. It looks like it's got a new air conditioner system on it. Looks like it's got fairly new tires. The windshield looks good. The paint looks good. The interior looks good. So for $2,800, it's definitely worth the investment. And that's the way we sell it. But here again, the sale is made in the positives, what's right with the car, not necessarily what's wrong with the car.
Well, you know, one thing that we've seen that works really good is to always talk about the replacement value versus is that car worth it. Some people, we'll tell them, for example, if the car needs a ton of work and the car's only worth $2,000, we'll tell them up front, hey, that vehicle, I don't tell them whether it's worth it to them, I just tell them what the value is of that car. You don't want to offend them. But when somebody says, well, I'm just going to trade that car in, if you say, well, that's great, but you know, to do this $1,200 worth of work gets you back on the road, and you can probably drive that car for a couple more years versus trade it in. To trade it in and get another car, you might be into that $30,000.
Exactly.
So your replacement value is quantum more than the repair value.
And it seems the little line that I like to use is that when a customer, we start talking about replacement value, is I go in and I say, you know, ma'am, I understand your concern, but really this car new on the street is going to cost you I mean, I know we're talking about $1,200 and it is a lot of money, but we're looking at a car, if you wanted to replace it new, it's going to cost you $20,000, $30,000. And when you start talking $20,000, $30,000, now ma'am, if you're looking at just for transportation to get you from point A to point B, $1,200 is well worth the investment. Now, if you're just tired of driving the car and you want something different, you're just tired of driving it, but keep in mind that eventually you're going to get tired of driving a new car. So if you look at it from an investment standpoint, $1,200 is definitely worth it.
Yeah.
And, you know, especially if they start talking about used, and then you go, look, ma'am, you know what you've got in this car. It's got a brand new AC system on it. It's got new tires on it. You buy something used, they're going to give you a 30-day warranty, and then you might be back in the same boat you're in right now.
You don't know what you got.
You don't know what you got.
And
at least now we know.
And a new car is going to cost you more with insurance.
Right.
You're going to have a payment if you don't pay cash.
Right.
So you can't really make a good argument new versus.
And we're talking we're talking, you know, $1,200, man. That's really 2 or 3 months worth of notes.
Yeah.
I said you can limit that to 2 or 3 months instead of 60 months.
Okay. Well, good. Well, we've covered a lot of these objections. You know, let's just kind of sum this up. And I know that we've gone maybe longer than we wanted to, but this is such a critical issue, and we're happy to take some questions. But you know, one of the things that, you know, we got into these objections, but I wanted to drive this point home with you again, which is a lot of times these objections there was already a problem before there was an objection. In other words, we didn't educate, right?
Right, correct.
We didn't think about those objections in our head that you brought up earlier.
No prep time.
No prep time. No role play.
Winging it.
We wing, you know, I don't know how somebody can pick up a phone, look at a $1,200 job and just pick up a phone and just try to sell it and wing it.
Right.
And I think part of that is because, you know, in our industry, you can not do any of this stuff we talked about today, and you're still going to sell some jobs. I call it the Michael Jordan effect. Michael Jordan scored a lot of points, but he shot the ball a hell of a lot of times. And what we don't want that, right? We want somebody who will take the time, whether it's a $100 job or a $2,000 job, to make sure that they're set for battle, even if the customer says, yeah, just go ahead and do it. And I think that's where people get lazy.
Absolutely.
Is a lot of times most customers are going to say, go ahead and do it even if you screw up the sale, right?
Absolutely. And they're not honing their skills. They're not getting consistent. Their presentations aren't consistent enough that when they do have pretty tough objections, they don't know where to go with it.
They don't know how to get off the phone.
Exactly.
They don't know how to turn over the ticket, or they're too prideful. Yeah. You know, probably over the years, the thing that's cost me more money is managers having pride.
Yep.
You know, instead of being smart. And there's a big difference. Pride costs you money.
Absolutely.
being smart makes you money. You know, to say, there's been many a times, and I've told this story, and you were back there when we were together, where you didn't have anybody else, and a general service person pitched the job for you after you did and sold the job. So a lot of it is just taking these handful of steps and doing them really, really well. And if you do that, your sales are going to climb dramatically. So, well, listen, I appreciate that. If we can answer some questions, why don't you type in a question to us real quick if you'd like, and we'll answer a couple, and maybe we won't have any questions. Maybe we did such a great job, Mike, that everybody's happy.
It's a lot of information in a short amount of time.
What about a customer, this customer put in, what about a customer says he's going to fix it himself? Well, we fixed a few of those.
Well, that's when you're gonna, when you go into, you basically here again, you're educating, you're selling. You tell the customer, depending on the repair. If the guy's gonna put his air filter in the car, then there's not a whole lot you can do about that. But if it's actually a mechanical repair, anything that has to be lifted, that's an easy sell. Okay, that's an easy sell. You start going in and you just start talking about safety. Sir, you don't want to do that. That's what we're here for. We're the Automotive Repair Center. We're going to give you a 3-year, 36,000 mile nationwide warranty. Absolutely, you're probably going to be able to save a little money going to a wholesale parts vendor, but they're going to sell you an inferior part. You can do it yourself, but it's going to cost you personal time, and then you may have to go through 2 or 3 of those components. Not with us. We fix it. You break down in Washington State, we're going to fix it on the spot.
Well, here's a great question, which is on our ads, we do the 1995 oil change, and we tend to only sell 2 or 3, upsell 2 or 3 of those oil changes out of 10. And how do you upsell an oil change, and how do you increase the chances of getting an upsell?
Here again, it's all in presentation. The sell on an oil change, if a customer coming in at the counter, the sell on the oil change is made in the first 20 seconds you're with the customer. Because what you're going to do is you're going to set the mindset of that customer up right at the counter, especially if they come in with a coupon. If they come in with a coupon, most of our coupons, all of our oil changes have 9-point inspection or 23-point inspection or tire rotation, whatever you want to put on along with your oil change. But let's say they don't have a coupon. It works the same way. I'm going to tell that customer, great, ma'am, because every one of them is going to ask you how long. That's just what they do. How long for an oil change? How long for a state inspection? Ma'am, absolutely, ma'am, we can get right on it. We're not only going to have our technician do an oil change, we're also going to have one of our ASC certified technicians do a complete maintenance inspection for you at absolutely no charge. If we see any safety or maintenance concerns, we'll let you know. Let me get your name and telephone number. So I'm going to set that customer up at the counter that I'm going to actually do that PMI for that customer. So now, and I'm going to tell that customer that I'm going to do that PMI first, because I've got to answer the question, how long? So basically, the oil change is going to take 10 minutes, and the 9-point inspection is going to take 10 minutes. I'm roughly going to need the car 20, 30 minutes. I'm going to do the 9-point inspection first. If I see any safety or maintenance concerns, I'll bring it to your attention.
And most people, even if it's 40 minutes for an oil change, in and out, they're okay.
Absolutely.
When you get close to the 50 minutes to an hour, that's when you run into a problem. The key is to get back to that customer within 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
And you're only looking at one item.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, we got to move on.
Oh, I was going to say, this has come up a couple times where guys have asked the in-house same as cash, or where do they go to look for the 6-month financing? I know Mike had mentioned the car care one, but
Okay.
What we had is, and you can even go online and look. A lot of these companies, if you type in online, financing for car repair, you're probably going to find a bunch of them on Google.
Correct.
And then you got to sort it out. What you don't use any company that requires you to pay any money to them.
Correct.
We use Car Care One, but it's very hard to get approved. If you're in the higher end neighborhoods, your chances go way up. But you just have to dig around. You can go and sometimes the local used car lots, they'll have some type of financing or have a way, because they do the same thing. Okay, so we've got time for maybe 1 or 2 questions. We'll see how this goes. What if the customer, you've tried to sell a job and they wanted a second opinion?
You know, that's a great question. And what we do there is we go back into giving the benefits of what we do and the warranties, and we actually ask the customer, we actually will recommend that, you know what, ma'am, I completely understand your concern. That's just a wise business decision. I tell you what, is there a particular competitor in the area? I'll be more than happy to take the car over there myself. And boom, I'm telling you, man, I'm telling you, when you get that brave about it, 9 out of 10 times they're going to tell you it's a car.
And if we say we are the second opinion, let's go back in the shop and let's look at your vehicle together. At least let me show you. A lot of times if it's a leak, you can see a leak, right? Or if there's a crack in the belt, we can show a crack in the belt. So it doesn't take, you know, if they see it and you go over the car with them, that is a second opinion. We'll do it together. Let's look at it together. And that usually overcomes, that's usually a very weak objection.
Absolutely.
So good. Well, listen, that is all the time we have for this today. Mike, I want to thank you so much for flying in. He flew in for this. If we didn't get a question, or you wanted to send a question to us, would you please send an email to Tim Ross, and he'll get that email to us and we'll answer it. Mike, thanks again.
Anytime.
Mike, again, if you guys came in late, he has 12 stores in the Austin and Dallas area. He was my #1 sales general manager, first time owner operator. He doesn't work for me. He owns his own business. Just an outstanding guy, a guy I'm lucky to call my friend, and I appreciate you coming in.
Anytime.
Okay, thank you guys very much.